Hello everybody, I woke up today and I chose violence, so I'm making a video that you're all going to hate me for because I'm going to defend Mojang here because you guys don't understand anything about game development at all. So let's just go ahead and hop right into it. I've been seeing a lot of complaints about mob variants with the new chickens, cows, pigs, blah 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 blah. This is what you guys asked for, okay? I seem to very clearly remembering people asking for new dog variants. Can you blame Mojang for drawing the conclusion that you also want new cows, new pigs, new chickens? I understand that they may not look the way you want them to look. In fact, I don't like how the warm pig looks. I think it would look great with tusks. I get there's some frustrations there, but this is what the people asked for, whether we agree on that or not. This is how you can see how any company would say they want more variants because they asked for more variants here. You apply that across the board. Once they plan a feature and they approve it, they're not going to just take it off the table because the community says, I hate it, unless the knee-jerk reaction is just that bad. There's a huge majority of the players that aren't online chronically who only want new features. The players who are online and always talking about these updates, they're a very small subsection of the community. People making videos, even smaller. So you're just in an echo chamber, hearing yourself over and over and over again. There's a lot of people who do like these new mob variants. Mojang is going to add them no matter what. Complaining about them, unless you're going to give some constructive feedback, just isn't helpful. So that's the whole mob variant thing. We're actually going to talk about the UI changes though, because today they rolled out a new update which has some different spawn egg textures, and people haven't stopped to think for 1 second before hating on this. I'm going to put these two side by side here. This is the old menu, this is the new menu. And we're just going to put some color blindness settings on it randomly. And you're going to have to tell me which mob egg is which. Here's a hint, you can't. Why? Because color blindness is a huge deal, and when you only have shapes to go off of on some of this, it's going to be pretty difficult. On top of that, good UI requires you to be able to immediately tell what it does. If you can't tell what something is supposed to do, it's not a good UI design. I'm sorry, but that's just the way that is. You can be wrong if you want to be wrong, but you're wrong. We're going to also talk about update scale, and that kind of also goes in with game development cycle, so we're going to talk about both of those kind of intertwined a little bit here. Update scales. A lot of people have been complaining about the game drop size. The thing is, this is a new system for Mojang. This is very, very new. Also, on top of that, that goes into the game development cycle. Game development has its own cycle, even with updates. Mojang is doing something that no other game company does, as far as I'm aware. They're offering updates for free after you buy the game for $30, when every other game is $70 brand new. I don't want to hear too many complaints on that, and we'll get into that in the monetization section. But let's just talk about the update scales. Okay, so last update was the Pale Garden update with the creaking. We got a whole new biome, a whole new tree, wood type. We got new moss. We got a mob that has brand new mechanics that we didn't have before. Those are some pretty big things in all honesty, and they added 2 other features. It was an update. It didn't have like new game-changing features or anything, but I don't think that's the point of these game drops necessarily. And on top of that, it frees up a whole bunch of other developers. Each team can work on their own stuff and get a lot more done when they're not having to work on one update at a time and then move on to the next one later and then the next one later. The art team is having a heyday right now because they can work on all these new textures, and that gives them time to program new features for the actual game developers who sit there and hard code new features. They have to sit there and do that, and they use their own prototype models and textures and everything. And then they can pitch that to a whole team, and then the team can say, yes, let's make some new textures for it with the art team, blah, 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 blah. There's teams for each of these game drops. I don't think anyone really realizes this. Mojang has a lot of employees. They're not all working on the same update at once. I know I've heard people complaining about no end update for the longest time. This gives them the ability to actually work on an end update without having to sit there and work on that for 2 years. Because nobody's going to be happy with an end update no matter how they do it, but they might as well put out some drops while they're working on it. On top of that, you also got to understand, these game drops is also what people were asking for. Everybody was complaining about how long it took Mojang to get updates done. People were complaining that updates were getting delayed. This is smaller updates so that they can actually get it done every couple of months and give you something new. So again, think about what you're asking for before you start clamoring on the internet and hating on Mojang and sending them death threats. Now let's talk about the mob and Biome Vote. There could be a whole video about this. Ultimately, I think people blew it all out of proportion. I think, yes, Mojang should probably have added some of the features that they said they were intending to add later on down the road a lot sooner. But you also have to look at it from this point of view. They plan updates most likely years in advance. No good company is running around with their head like a chicken with their head cut off. That's just not how that works. Every good game development company should have at least a yearly plan, but they should also have a 4-year plan, a general idea of what they're updating within those 4 years. That gives them plenty of time to work on the new features and prototype it. It also gives them time to figure out where they need to pivot towards. This is just how all games work, and if you disagree on that, you need to go look it up and do your own research, but that's accurate. I am somewhat in the game development industry. I'm not a worker in a professional field, but I do game development on the side occasionally, and I have a couple of friends who are in that industry. That is just how that works. So to just stuff an entire Biome Vote worth of features into the next update afterwards isn't exactly something that they can do unless they're planning for it, which means they couldn't do another mob vote or another Biome Vote the next year because they had to focus on adding more mobs. And now I'm going to hear a complaint from people saying, well, what about the modders? They were able to do this in one day. Yes, they can, because they're modders. You know what they have? They don't have to go through a whole approval process through Microsoft and Mojang, or rather Mojang and then Microsoft. They don't have to go through the marketing team and making sure it's marketable enough. They don't have to... They already have the assets created for them, but they don't have to tweak it based on player feedback. Same thing with the code. The bug fixing is minimal at best, because nobody's going to complain about a bug unless it's game breaking in a mod, unless you're like maybe 3 years old. Because it's a mod, who cares? You didn't pay money for it, so it can be a little bit buggy. It doesn't have to fit the game balancing either, that's the other thing. Mojang has to focus on those things, which makes it take even longer. So, just a little bit of food for thought for the mob votes. And the Biome Vote, I kind of already covered. It's about feature scales and such. We can kind of cover the update delays just a little bit. Overall, it was a better choice for them to delay the Deep Dark from being in the 1.17 and 18 updates. Splitting it was unfortunately a needed thing, because with the growing toxicity of the Minecraft community, which has been an issue since 1.9 came out, probably even before that, the updates have been getting bigger, bigger, and bigger, and bigger. And with a terrain overhaul that has a lot of performance issues on top of it, you have to split your updates somehow, because that just wasn't ever going to work for Mojang. And it was smart of them to do it the way they did it. Does it suck that they had to? Yes, absolutely. But as you can see, they've scaled back their updates, and now guess what? People are complaining again because we had our update delayed and split for 3 updates, which is, yes, I get it, very frustrating. But on top of that, you're also looking at the fact that Mojang has scaled back and learned their lesson from that, and now people are still complaining. They can't win because the community is awful like that. I'm sorry, but you guys are awful. Stop being mean to Mojang. I'm not trying to defend the company. I'm defending the employees. They're not as lazy as you think they are. On top of that, there's also feature parity between Bedrock and Java. There's some differences. You gotta also understand game development across 2 different platforms. There's a Java team and there's a Bedrock team. They work in different code bases. They have a meeting and they say this is what we're adding, and sometimes not every detail gets communicated. That's just how things work. You can't communicate every single detail about every single thing. So somebody might have one interpretation, somebody might have another. They've done their best to keep that from happening more, but it's going to take time to slowly make everything exactly the same across all versions. On top of that, you have to look at who's going to make the most noise, the Bedrock people or the Java people when the change gets made? And the example of Redstone, for example, there is no parity between Java Redstone and Bedrock Redstone. Why? Because they're two completely different systems, and Bedrock people are going to complain if all their contraptions get broken, and Java people are going to complain if all their contraptions get broken. So what is Mojang supposed to do about that? You tell me. And then finally, we need to talk about marketplace and monetization in Minecraft. You bought the game for 30 bucks, maybe even less, and you're complaining that they're trying to monetize the game. You're not their target audience, respectfully speaking. I'm not a huge fan of the whole Minecoin thing. I'm not a huge fan of subscriptions, but I'm not their target audience. Their target audience is people who do want those things. And I don't blame Mojang for trying to monetize, because that's how they fund making more updates for free for you and for me. So I don't think it's fair to just say Mojang bad because they have microtransactions or whatever. That's not it at all. And respectfully, you can go stick a sock in it or something like that. I'm sure you're going to have plenty of comments about this video. I just got really sick of seeing people comment negative feedback when it's not warranted. You understand nothing about how it is to be a game designer. You just saw something, knee-jerk reaction, and here we are. I'm going to encourage you guys, before we end off though, to think critically for a couple of minutes when you do see any change made by any game developer in any game. These are real people, and they have a real reason for what they do. Think about that before you just comment something crazy like Mojang should be put to death because they put this one change that I really don't like. And turns out it was actually for a good reason. Remember potions back in a couple updates ago? I don't even remember which update. It was one of the smaller ones. They changed all the colors. That was because of color blindness. And now colorblind people have a lot easier of a time playing the game because all the potions aren't the same exact color. And it's in an effort to make the game a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable by a wider player base. That is a net gain for you and for me to have more players in the Minecraft community. Anyway, I've rambled on and on enough. This is not my usual video. I just got really sick of seeing people complain about stuff that, quite frankly, isn't getting any counterpoint because the Minecraft community is an echo chamber right now. I'll hopefully see you guys again sometime later. I hope I didn't hurt any of your feelings too bad. And comment down below if you have a counterpoint. Maybe we'll make a second part to this video, but I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.